Hello from Raymond James Stadium in here in Tampa after the Bulldogs take a 27-22 loss to Iowa, and a loss where I guess the game story is obviously the Bulldogs had it on their hands and dropped it. But Stephen Guidry's drop of the pass that would put State in the lead is just one of many errors in the game. You can point to every single one of them from first quarter through the fourth that let a win in Bulldogs' hands just get away, Steve.
Well, it was a weird game throughout. It never felt comfortable. Even when State comes in and you maintain a drive and you had to settle for 2 field goals early, and you knew that wasn't going to be enough to win, but you felt like with your defensive effort you'd have an opportunity to kind of muddle through an ugly game. And it was an ugly game, and as bad as the first quarter was, missed opportunities, the second quarter was marred with penalties, mostly deserved, shall we admit. The third quarter was rife with turnovers, and so it was a weird game, and even when State got the lead, you just never felt comfortable.
Well, I think I started to feel comfortable when State had the 19-17 lead and get the ball back. And at that point, State's the worst interception, the worst turnover of the game occurs when an odd play call to throw into a scrum of humanity where there's not even an open receiver there, and it gets tipped, it gets picked off, and I was able to convert it into points on a very shaky play too, because I believe the defender was tackled in the end zone who was supposed to be covering the guy who caught it. Interesting that the Pac-12 officiating crew had some non-calls. Iowa gets out of here with 0 penalties, which Nick Fitzgerald went to great lengths to point out. State 8. Most of them deserved, you say, but let's just say this way. The Hawkeyes did a better job adapting to how the game was called than the Bulldogs did, and then State made more than enough mistakes that were deserved, such as the holding call that cost a touchdown play, such as, well, let's just pick many of them in there. State did more than enough damage to itself today.
It's true, and David, that play right before the half, you're exactly right, and it was a holding call. But you make a great throw from your quarterback. Osiris Mitchell goes up, wins a 50-50 ball, and that's really kind of become his role in this offense. He made another big catch on the far sideline there, David, that would have set up another Bulldog score that ultimately led to a turnover. But it's just one of those things that it just seemed kind of herky-jerky, to borrow the term of a former coach here. State never really found any rhythm. You give Iowa some credit. Defensively, they did a really good job. But State did too, and we got some juice in that third quarter. Willie Gay comes out, talked about that with us. Made a great play. Then you get a second turnover, and it felt like momentum was shifting. State unable to capitalize, though.
We could almost say, and we'll talk later about what happened in the fourth quarter there. This game might have been lost, or certainly, if not lost, the chance to take it away and take control was given away in the first quarter. State twice settles field goals. Probably should have come out with at least a 10-0 lead at that point. Odd play calling, play selection, reads, whatever you want to call it there, that did not maximize opportunities in that period.
It's true, and I know a lot of people, like on our message boards, were commenting on the post pattern to Keaton Thompson.
It was open, and if you're a quarterback, you better have good enough hands to catch a nice pass.
Yeah, I think he heard some footsteps from the safety creeping over there. But, yeah, some people say, well, why get cute in that situation? You can make the argument either way. You're trying to make a play there. And let's say State scores there and you go up 10-0 with a trick play there. This place is electric, and Iowa's probably kind of sitting back on their heels a little bit. But, yeah, there was some – David, we could talk all day about missed opportunities with this team, but that's really kind of been a microcosm of the season.
And that was summed up by several players. I think in particular Jeffrey Simmons and others said this was the season. And it's almost as if here in this defeat they're going back to September and October in the games they let get away. Very similar. I keep going back to the Florida game. Osiris Mitchell goes up and catches a 50-50 ball. State defeats Florida. And we're probably playing somewhere other today, playing somebody other than Iowa, certainly. This game comes down to a similar play, a game you probably played badly enough to lose, and yet you're positioned to win on one play, which tells you how close the Bulldogs were. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I'm not sure at this point. I need a couple of days to think about it, but what would be your capsule impression?
Well, David, one of the first things I heard when we got out of here today is that we're trying to cool Dedrick Thomas down. He got a little overheated in warm-ups, so it's like you got off to a weird start in that respect, but then you go back and you think about the Osiris Mitchell play. Much maligned receiver many times this year, but he's a guy, quite frankly, that shouldn't be in the position that he's in just yet. He's still developing. But he made a couple big-time grabs today, and you felt like even late, when State was driving there late in the ball game, when Dedrick Thomas made that catch to pick up the big first down, you felt like, okay, State might be able to make a play here. And from there, it's like a lot of the issues popped up. Some pass protection broke down, some accuracy issues from Fitzgerald broke down, And Stephen Guidry is a guy that we expected him to come in and kind of be the guy, and he's still a work in progress.
One penalty that really stood out to me that maybe gets lost in retrospective, Nick Gibson's long run 14 yards when State has position to start taking a little control of the game, and he face masked. That's a very rare call. Did he do it? Yes. And I suspect had the helmet not been yanked a little bit, he probably gets away with it. But that kind of epitomized a lot of things about this game, that State was so close to doing something really good that went really bad.
And you could make an argument, too, that there probably should have been offsetting penalties there because the DB aggravated by having the face mask pulled, and he did face mask him. It is a rare call, but he absolutely did. Then he shoves Gibson basically into the Iowa bench there, no call there. But it's like the bottom line is you can't depend on officials to bail you out. You can't have these self-inflicted issues, and that's really Mississippi State beat themselves today. All due respect to Kirk Ferentz and his staff, but Mississippi State left a win out here on this field today.
Yes, when you hold a team to 200 yards total offense or there, I've not seen the final stats there, you're supposed to win the game. When your punter has a career day getting field position, you should win the game. When your place kicker has a career day, you should win the game. Somehow, while trying to give Iowa credit in that regard, Mississippi State found more ways to lose this game than Iowa did to win it. And that's what really is frustrating because, again, all that goes back to a senior team that played so well down the stretch. How do all of a sudden they revert back to September and start making those mistakes? Was it the 6-week layoff? Was it senioritis? Was it something we'll never be able to put our hands on?
That's a great question, David. I mean, Mississippi State entered this ball game having not surrendered a play of 50 yards or more, and the big play in the ball game, really the 75-yard touchdown that put Iowa ahead in the ball game. And Jonathan Abram, he's your guy. That's the guy you expect back there, and he admitted in post game that that he had the wrong check in that situation, and he'll explain that. We'll have that video up tomorrow for people to see him talk about that particular play. But when guys like that, when your leaders are making mistakes like that, you begin to kind of wonder if it's your day. And then when you have a ball that's tipped into your wide receiver's hands for a touchdown, bounce out and into a defender's hands for an interception, you just kind of get a feeling that, we're going to have to beat more than 11 guys here today. We're going to have to find a way to beat back fate. That's how it felt.
So the Bulldogs give one away. No other way to put it there. But I still want to go back to that pass play, that as bad a first half as Nick Fitzgerald had in most regards. And, yes, there were several drops that would have made it look better. Second half, he hits some big throws, makes some big mistakes. But when the game is on the line, he makes the throw. Through traffic, yes, Stephen Guidry had to pick it up late because it's coming through the defense. But it's there. It's on the hands. And not only does it fall off his hands, it's caught on a carom by a guy, right place, right time. But you could say the same thing for Iowa. I mean, State gets back in the game because of a great hit by Stephen Adegoke on a kickoff return that bounces in air. Mark McLaurin somehow stays in bounds, feels it. State goes down and scores. There were so many chances to take control. State never took control, let the game get away. I know in coming days we're going to kind of do a snapshot of the season there. Robbie's doing a column right now on the season that could have been and wasn't. I want to look more big picture about Moorhead himself as a coach, because now he's losing so many seniors. He's losing Jeffrey Simmons. He's losing the heart of a defensive team that still should be good next year but won't be great in that unless they really surprise us. Do you feel good about 2019 right now, or do you sit there and look big picture and think at the missed chances of 2018? I know that's tough for us to both think about here so close to the moment, but that's going to be the question we have to deal with in coming weeks until certainly we have a chance to sit down and talk to Coach Moorhead, until we see what maybe happens with the staff here in the offseason and how they finish up recruiting in February.
Well, I believe Mississippi State's a bowl team next year. Could be a good team. I don't expect a great team, and I know that's a lot of our fans say, how can you say that? Well, that's just today, how I feel today, and I may feel differently in the spring, but I think with the available personnel returning, you can field a very solid team. You're going to be very good at linebacker. You should be good at the defensive line. You won't be elite on the defensive line.
But you're good, and I think you'll be good at the safety positions as well.
I think you'll be pretty good at safety, but you're going to lose a couple NFL guys back there. But corner should be okay. You feel good about Smitherman and Cam Dantzler, but what's going to happen offensively? With Fitzgerald. Listen, he's got his critics, but at many times on 3rd and 1, he was the guy that went and made the first down for you. Nick gave his endorsement to Keaton Thompson in the post game and said, that he expects him to win the competition. So it'll be an open competition as it should be, but he thinks Keaton's the guy to lead this offense. And so I expect a good season next year, not a great one. Now, again, they could surprise, but I think we'll be back in the ball picture again next year, and it'll be a transition year for us. But the main thing that we've had the last decade, David, is we've avoided those big Mississippi State peaks and valleys where we work, get a senior-laden team, go to a decent bowl game, and then bottom out and have 2 years of rebuilding, and then maybe get to a bowl game in 3rd and 4th year. We're just 9 straight years now, David, and so the expectation against next year to be a bowl team.
I expect them to be a bowl team too because I've been looking at the schedule. You know, that's what we do in December, looking at it. You expect some of your opponents that you beat this year are not going to be much better, if any better, next year. Some of the teams you play tight with, win or lose, should be certainly within your striking distance, even with a somewhat lesser team. But again, it's going to come down to the offense because you've got Joe Moorhead was hired as an offensive coach. I still think, and I'll be writing about this later in the week, that he's still making the transition from coordinator to coach, and I think it more came at the expense of his coordinator than it did as his coach at this point, especially here in bowl preparation. But that's something to debate in there. And oh, by the way, you mentioned Nick Fitzgerald there. We'll let the video where he talks about the 3 first down goal line runs stand on its own merits. You read your own into it. We're not going to pass judgment on that. But they were, and Moorhead talked about it as well, so check that out. I just wanted to hit that real quick because I know it's on everybody's mind, more so even than the dropped and intercepted ball in the end zone. But I agree with you, Steve. State will be a bowl team next year. What bowl? That, State fans, is why you should show up at bowls like this. You can never take for granted that you'll come back to Tampa at that level because next year you're probably not playing for this level. Maybe you are, maybe you're not, but you're getting ready for a bowl. Use your opportunities. So enough lecturing for today. Nobody's happy. Nobody wants to hear from us at this point. They're too busy watching the New Year's Six games as well today. But I say I had a good time down here. A good bowl trip. A bowl I've always wanted to make it back to. Steve, you made a late run to get here last night, but made the game. You'll be heading back partway tonight. So it's on to finishing up the recruiting class, seeing what happens with the coaching staff. Coach John Cohen will be talking with Coach Moorhead in the coming weeks about about the indoor practice facility he wants. I suspect it'll be an expansion of the Palmero Center instead of a from-the-grounds facility because other things are taking priority, including Humphrey Coliseum, by the way, which a lot of work is about to get ready to start doing on that, we're told. But a lot of things to cover in the offseason coming up, but let's just take our break. Let's try to catch a little bit of breath here. I know we were rushed in Christmas and New Year's, and maybe we'll take just a little bit of downtime, but football never ends, and 2019, as of today, is already underway, Steve.
It's true, David, and we have ended a lot of football seasons in a lot worse places than Tampa, Florida. You know, and while it's losing the game today where it all stings right now, you know, this is what we want. We want to be able to regularly be, and we talked about this earlier, and 6 Florida trips in 10 years. You know, I'm not trying to make light of losing the ball game because we should have won the ball game, but the level at which we are today is something that our forefathers and our fathers did not get to appreciate. And so
most of them never saw a bowl, period.
David, you're exactly right. I mean, you know, we go from, 1940 to 1963 without a bowl game, and then we'll go back again in 1974. And so we could talk about that all day. The bottom line is this team underachieved. That said, Mississippi State is a bowl team annually. Don't ever take that for granted.
Never take it for granted, but never relax and rest on it because a lot has to be done in this postseason to get Mississippi State back to this level in the coming years. They're going to be good. Will they be this level? That's up to the coach as he settles into being now his second-year coach, and the honeymoon period is over. It's time for everybody to get back to work on Bulldog football 2019. So for our crew from Gene Space 24/7, it's been a long season. It's been a fun season, even with the losses, the ups and downs. I've had a good time covering it, good time doing these videos with you, Steve, and it's not going to stop because basketball is underway. So Lady Bulldogs at home this weekend. The men are home on the 12th next time, but we'll be having interviews with the coaches there. Killed a lot of time here, obviously. And, oh, by the way, hey, you may have heard we have played baseball as well. That great new stadium will be opening in February, so a lot to look forward to. So don't let this one hurt too long. Remember that 2018 that was and look for the 2019 that may yet be. And enjoy the fact that you still have your cowbell and you can ring it loudly and proudly. For our crew here, for Steve Robertson, here at Tampa, Florida, this is David Murray.